It's Devan Kaney, Jason LaCanfora. I'm filling in for Joe, Jeremy Conn here on BetMGM Gameday. We welcome in Evan Giddings. He's the host of the 415ers podcast. Did I do that right? Yeah, because it's the area code. I just asked you that. Covers the San Francisco 49ers for Odyssey, which we're all a part of. So first off, welcome to the show. Appreciate you joining us, Evan.
Oh, appreciate you having me on. Yeah, look, it's a lot of fun. I'm glad you guys are up and early. I know a couple of you had a bit of a late night, so I'm glad you got me on.
Well, let's do this because we're obviously going to talk all things 49ers right now. And we were talking about it earlier because everybody loves Debo. They love Christian McCaffrey. They love Kittle. And now Purdy's burst onto the scene. The guy on that offense that I feel gets left out is Brandon Ayuk. What a player. And I think he's in for a big game today. Talk to me a little bit about him and what you see from him throughout the season.
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk has been that safety blanket for whoever's been quarterback for the 49ers this year, and he's been the one most consistently out there. He's also been somewhat of their go-to guy on third down. So when the Niners need a big reception, Brandon Ayuk's the type of guy with his route running that can create separation enough for whether it was Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo or now Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy has really seemed to develop a connection with Brandon Ayuk. You know, just looking at a player prop today of 52.5 yards, to me, that's something that I would love to sprinkle on, as well as, you know, targets, receptions. I think Brandon Ayuk is poised for a big game, considering the Dallas Cowboys have had some struggles stopping number 2 receivers. And even though Ayuk is the leading receiver this year with over 1,000 yards, when Debo enters the fold, he becomes the number 2. And I think the Cowboys have had some trouble stopping those number 2s, especially the latter half of this season.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this matchup, I know you cover the 49ers. So what is the key for the Niners getting the win today over the Cowboys?
Well, the key starts in the trenches. I think it starts at the line of scrimmage because this is a 49ers team that loves to run the football, and especially early. I think we kind of got a playoff preview, so to speak, in Week 15 of how Kyle Shanahan wants to establish his offense early in a game, which is 10 of the first 13 plays going to Christian McCaffrey to make sure that Brock Purdy is comfortable back there in the pocket, that he has some time, that pass rush can't pin its ears back, and Dallas does it very well as opposed to some of the opponents that San Francisco has seen down the stretch of this season. So if you're looking at a 49ers team that has rushed the ball for over 150 yards in the last 6 games, I would say it starts there, even though a lot of the glitz and the glam surrounds their quarterback who's thrown 2 or more touchdowns in each of his first 7 games as a starter. So Brock Purdy has elevated this offense to a new level as far as points and totals. But when it comes to what Kyle Shanahan wants to do, where he wants to win this game, it's going to be on the ground, and it's going to be at the line of scrimmage.
Well, and Evan, this Dallas run defense is better than it was when they faced them in the playoffs a year ago. But you're talking about trenches, and this guy isn't going to win you any money on your bets, but he might help you win your 49ers to cover bet. For me, is Kyle Juszczyk. And you look at the usage of 21 personnel by Shanahan, which he always likes, but since Purdy's gotten there, it's become like almost the main thing. They're averaging almost 27 snaps a game in 21 personnel. Dallas has faced 21 personnel, 27 snaps all season, least in the NFL. The league average is 82. I just wonder if Dallas is built to handle that brawn. You know, and he can even get an extra tackle in there as well. Like, I just wonder if they can beat them up a little bit with the offensive line and the fullback and the two-headed running game with Debo and McCaffrey.
Yeah, it's interesting. And, hey, look, if you're ever looking for a 49ers-related trivia question, who's the first touchdown pass that Brock Purdy threw it to? Kyle Juszczyk. That was the guy to begin his career. So I think that Kyle Shanahan is someone who likes to keep his cards close to the vest, and Juszczyk is that kind of wild card for the 49ers because he does so much, and they move him all over the field. The way that a lot of people describe the 49ers here in the Bay Area will be playing positionless football, kind of like the Warriors play positionless basketball when you're talking about that 21 personnel. So with Kyle Juszczyk, I know he was relatively quiet in their first playoff game against Seattle, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle Shanahan, maybe not early in this game, but that first drive of the second half where he likes to get back to basics, back to his script that he has gone with so well this year, you might see a Kyle Juszczyk, run here, a dump off there. Obviously, it's not going to be a whole lot over the course of a football game, but if you're looking at player props, Kyle Juszczyk is certainly one to target.
Talking to Evan Giddings, host of the 415ers podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at egiddings10. Now let's talk about the quarterback situation, because seeing Brock Purdy in this offense kind of gave me pause to Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, was he just not good in the offense? Was he not producing? I know they were winning games, and overall with the quarterback situation, I know it's a ways away. What happens with that now? Because you have a former number 1 overall pick, you've got Garoppolo there, and then you find Mr. Irrelevant, and he's looked better than both of them.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. Look, the quarterback room has been flipped on its head over the course of this season, and it's so strange to see the QB2 be better than the QB1, and then QB3 be better than QB2 and QB1. But I think Jimmy Garoppolo, with the way that Brock Purdy has played the last part of this season, is probably on his way out and is hopefully on his way to a nice payday, in his middle to low 30s as far as age is concerned. So for me, it comes down to Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. And at this point, every single game that Brock Purdy wins, which is all he's done so far, makes him closer and closer to QB1 entering next year. I do believe Kyle Shanahan publicly will come out and state that it's going to be a quarterback competition, and obviously Trey Lance will get a fair shake at trying to reclaim his starting spot. But I think he'd be hard-pressed to find not just a fan, but a media member, as someone who covers this team out here in the greater Bay Area, to tell you that Brock Purdy is not the guy moving forward. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, I think it was after Week 15 against Seattle, called Brock Purdy the most poised rookie quarterback that he had ever worked with. And of course, he's worked with a former Rookie of the Year in Robert Griffin III. So very high praise from Kyle Shanahan. And just reading into that tells me that it's Purdy's job to lose entering this summer.
Looking ahead, 49ers, if they win tonight, will head to Philadelphia to cover the Eagles. I cover the Eagles, to play the Eagles. Who do you think makes it to the Super Bowl? Do you believe that this 49ers team is the best team, not just in the NFC, but in the NFL? Do you think that this is the year they win it all?
I think this is as good of a chance as they have had. Even going back to 2019, I still felt like Kansas City was a better team, even though San Francisco had the best overall season. That's the way that I kind of feel about the Philadelphia Eagles. They've had the best full year to me. The 49ers are playing the best football. The one thing that it would come down to me would be home field advantage, and right now the Eagles own that, and they deserve that. Brock Purdy has shown that he can go out and win one playoff game on the road, or win a game on the road, up in Seattle. So he's faced some sort of a difficult environment, but Philly would be a completely different beast. And I just think with especially what we saw last night against the Giants, them absolutely dismantling New York in Philadelphia, that would reorder the hierarchy for me as Philadelphia 1, San Francisco 2. But I think we'd be in for a very good football game. So should San Francisco be able to take care of Dallas, I think it's still for me, and I've kind of have been saying this even out here in San Francisco for the past 6 or 7 weeks, that I think Philadelphia is the team that represents the NFC, but I think San Francisco has the best shot of any team to try and knock them off, maybe even in the AFC if Patrick Mahomes' injury is larger than what we thought.
Well, when it comes to the quarterback situation with the Niners, how big of a factor is that? Do you think Brock Purdy, a rookie quarterback who hasn't necessarily played in a super hostile environment, you mentioned Seattle, but like Philadelphia would be, during a playoff game, during an NFC championship game, is he the type of quarterback who, because he's so young and new to the game in terms of the NFL, would get rattled by that, by a hostile environment?
I don't think he would necessarily get rattled, but one of the knocks on Brock Purdy coming out of college, which is where the majority of the tape for him lies at this point, is the fact that he was a bit of a risk taker and not afraid to try and fit a ball into a tight window. And in college, in the Big 12, that may work, but in the NFL, that might tend to get you beat, especially in a big game. Now, he has not done that thus far. I mean, he's been nearly flawless, and if he throws 2 more touchdowns today against Dallas, he would tie Justin Herbert's rookie record for most games with multiple touchdown passes. So he has been fantastic. I think that Kyle Shanahan is the type of play caller to not let his rookie quarterback make the big mistake. And so that's why I feel like, again, today and moving forward into Philadelphia, should they move on, it's going to be run first, pass second, because if Brock Purdy has enough time in the pocket, he can be deadly with the amount of weapons he has. We talked about Brandon Ayuk, obviously Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield, and George Kittle, who's absolutely exploded the last month of the regular season. So I think that with the weapons around him, Brock Purdy shouldn't and won't feel necessarily, beneath the task of beating an Eagles team on the road. But, of course, you never really know how a rookie quarterback is going to play in the biggest game of his life. And the thing is, the biggest game of his life is every next game at this point for him. So it's going to be a tall task for sure.
Well, Evan, if the 49ers don't get this done, what does that game look like? What gives you, I guess, the most concern about this matchup? Are there certain Cowboys players or Cowboys tendencies that you think could be a problem for the Niners?
A couple of matchups that I'm looking at first on offense would be CeeDee Lamb, because the 49ers have had some reorganization of their secondary since Emmanuel Mosley tore his ACL in the fourth week of the season. So right now, Jimmy Ward is kind of that slot corner, along with a Tony Womack III off the bench, or Samuel Womack III off the bench, pardon me. So as CeeDee Lamb, who I know can get busy in the slot on the outside, is going to be moving around a lot. Charvarius Ward, who's been a great cover corner this year for San Francisco, is probably not going to follow him the entire game. So how can Dallas free up CeeDee Lamb and get him loose in the secondary that has been susceptible to big plays as of late? On offense, to me, it comes down to, as I'm sure everyone tries to do, stopping that Dallas pass rush. And right now, with, I think, 54 sacks this season, the only really team that San Francisco has faced in the last half of the year was New Orleans when it comes to a dominant pass rush. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback that day, and San Francisco mustered only 13 points. Now, they won 13-0, but that's been the lowest offensive output the last half of the season for the number one offense at this point. So if you're looking at comparable defenses, I think New Orleans is the game you want to look at. And maybe a 49ers fan would tell you, hey, we beat up on Washington, scored 37 points, and at that time they were the number 4 defense. So I think that it comes down to, on offense, how can San Francisco limit the number 1 guy in CeeDee Lamb, and on defense, keep Brock Purdy safe against what's going to be the best pass rush they've seen this season.
That's Evan Giddings, of course, a host of the 415ers podcast. Follow him on Twitter at eGiddings10. Appreciate your time, man. Good luck to you. And as you said before you came on, this should be a good game today, so I think we're all in for a couple of good games, actually.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a close one. I still do think San Francisco covers. I think the score looks something along the lines of 28-20, so it's a game that is going to be hard-fought, where San Francisco separates in the second half. You're also looking at a slight over, I believe, on the 47. So I am on the San Francisco spread and on the over.
Good stuff, man. Thanks for your time, as always, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. That's Evan Giddings.